Welcome to the Mind Rebel podcast, where each episode is a guided exploration or conversation designed to move you forward toward clarity, truth, and the wisdom within you that knows the way. I'm Taryn Watts, founder of the Mind Rebel Academy, home of the revolutionary Mind Rebel method, where we guide people through deep personal transformation programs and also train and support world-class coaches. I'm joined here by my dear friend and co-host, Theriault. We hope you enjoy this episode. Today, we're going to teach you the most powerful and accessible technique in my coaching toolkit, the Mind Rebel Method's 3 Steps to Alignment. So in a nutshell, this technique really helps you to move through difficult or uncomfortable emotions in a really healthy and productive way. So it's not just about getting rid of a negative emotion or getting rid of a trigger. It's about getting to the heart of what's really going on inside of you so that you can come back into alignment with yourself. And I want to just take a moment to talk about what I mean by that. When I say come back into alignment with yourself, really what this process does is it helps you to return to a place where your body, your mind, your emotions are all working together in harmony rather than against each other. When you're in a place of alignment, you feel clear, you feel grounded. You're connected to your own inner wisdom, your own intuition, instead of spinning inside of your mind, spinning inside of confusion or overwhelm, or just even reacting from old patterns. When we talk about this term coming back into alignment, we're talking about that felt sense of just like a rightness inside of your body, a feeling of coming home to yourself, where you can move through life with greater clarity, with greater capacity to manage or handle what's going on around you, and also really builds greater self-trust inside of yourself. So before we dive in and we talk about the 3 steps to alignment and how you can use this, I just want to take a moment to ask, if our episodes support you, the most generous way you can support us is by liking, commenting, or subscribing to our channel on YouTube. It's just the smallest little action that you can take that makes a really big difference and impact for us. It helps our content reach the people who are meant to find this work, and we are so grateful when you do. So the 3 steps to alignment is at the very, very heart and core of what we teach at the MRA. We teach these 3 steps in much greater detail through our flagship program, the Mind Rebel Method. So that flagship program is actually part 1 of our coach training series. And in that program, you actually become your own case study. You get to experience the method's impact firsthand. And then in part 2 of our training, we teach our coaches how to guide others through these 3 steps in a really safe, skillful, and powerful way. So we teach this to every single student who enters the MRA. But more than that, we ourselves, we live this methodology. So I personally use the 3 steps to alignment with myself multiple times a week, sometimes on certain weeks every day. So in today's episode, we're going to teach you the foundations of this technique so that you can begin to use it with yourself as a daily tool to really move through any negative emotions that might come up and help you to center yourself so that you can move forward with clarity and a stronger sense of just groundedness inside of yourself. So this process is really a return to your inner knowing, your inner wisdom. So this technique helps you to cut through the mental noise or the drama or the situation that you might find yourself in, reconnect with the body, and find your way to your deepest truth, especially in moments of some type of inner chaos, big or small. So this is how I come home to myself when I've been knocked off my center, when something stirs up an old pattern, when I'm triggered inside, when I feel my nervous system kind of bracing or spiraling. It's also how I support clients in accessing what's really going on beneath the surface inside of them to get to the core emotion or the core belief that's really just asking to be seen and heard and felt, and then really naturally and lovingly released through our bodies. So when we practice this consistently, what this process does is it really helps to build this emotional fluency. It's also a skill that helps us to regulate our nervous systems and again, deepen that trust that we have to build and cultivate within ourselves. Whether you are new to personal growth work and working with your emotions or working with your body, or you've been on this journey for a really long time, this technique meets you exactly where you are. And you get to decide how deep you go when it comes to processing and feeling your emotions. It really is simple enough to remember in a moment of chaos and profound enough to move what is stuck inside of you. Even the really sticky and deeply rooted emotions. This is a really powerful process. So let's get into it. So the 3 steps to alignment are: step 1, name it. Step 2, feel it. Step 3, shift it. Super easy, really digestible. And our intention in this episode is to teach you these 3 steps in a really accessible way that can begin helping you today. These 3 steps help you to move from overwhelm to clarity, from emotional noise to your grounded inner wisdom. They help you move out of your mind and back into your body. And that's where the real truth lives. Before we dive into each of these 3 steps, I also want to let you know that we've also created a complimentary workbook that guides you through these 3 steps. So inside, you'll find a guided body scan, an emotional spectrum tool, and journaling prompts to help you get to the root of what you're feeling. So this is a free resource and it's available in our show notes. And we decided to make this accessible to everyone because we believe this work and this technique is too powerful not to share.
This name it, feel it, shift it process, I can pretty confidently say is the technique that's made the biggest difference for me internally and externally in my life. I think this one technique is probably responsible for the bulk of my healing, growth, integration, understanding of myself, acceptance of myself. I really think if I had to give credit to one thing, it would be this. I think there's many reasons for that. One is just that I think for almost everyone, regardless of how emotional you are or you aren't, or how emotionally healthy you feel, whatever, it feels pretty true that when I zoom out and I look at the world in general, emotions and the honoring of emotions and the space to feel emotions get the short end of the stick compared to intellectual expression, exploration. And so it feels like such a universal antidote, for everyone. But for me particularly, as you know, and probably everyone knows, I have such an intense internal emotional world. And there's been a million moments where there wasn't quite enough room given to me by the people around me or by myself or my schedule to fully feel, fully see, fully honor the realities of what was happening for me emotionally. And so this process, this technique is not only helpful in a moment of challenge or in a moment of present or intense emotion, I actually feel like it's undoing some of the neglect that I've done to myself or the world's done to me over the years. I feel like I'm slowly undoing that and rewiring myself in a way that's so much more self-honoring. And even though all of those things are so clearly true, and even as I say that, I just think, oh, this is such a beautiful process. I actually still, to this day, resist those initial moments of leaning in and choosing to really actively engage with it. And I think that's really fascinating. Even though I believe I've experienced the benefits of leaning in, there's still some inner resistance for me. So I just imagine there may be some inner resistance for other people. Sometimes it's just a feeling of oh, I don't feel like it. Other times, the feeling of resistance translates into a few little stories in my brain about it, like, that's not really going to make a difference, or, oh, that's not really going to help me. I need to figure out these action steps to be okay. I don't have time to sit and explore my inner world. My brain makes up all sorts of stories about why this isn't the most helpful thing in the moment. Every single time I've given it a chance anyway, I have been so grateful and so rewarded. And the feeling, once I get over that initial hump of resistance, it just seems to be always the medicine that I need in the moment.
There's a very, very logical part of my mind that craves efficiency. I love efficient processes. I love being efficient. I love an efficient home. I love efficient work. I love efficient conversations. I love efficiency. When I do errands, when I go to the grocery store, you should see how efficient I am in a grocery store. I love efficiency. Somewhere along the way, early on, when I started to just naturally do this process inside of myself, my brain got on board that this was the most efficient and effective way to feel better. So now, whenever I have any little negative emotion inside of me, or I'm overwhelmed, or something happens and I get triggered inside, or something activates me inside, I crave this process so intensely. I crave it beyond craving it. I crave myself. I will take myself through this process either, through journaling, so mirroring the process we've created for you in the digital workbook, or through meditation. We are also going to provide you with a name it, feel it, shift it meditation that I've recorded to help you go through this process in just a slightly different way. Not that I listen to my own voice. I can't listen to my own voice in meditation, but I'll just take myself through it with some nice music on in the background. But my brain is on board now that this is not a waste of time. This is the most efficient path to clarity. This is the most efficient path to shifting this energy and this emotion out of my body. This is the most efficient path forward. Because when I'm in a emotionally charged space, I'm not seeing the world clearly. I'm seeing the world through a lens of whatever stories are activated inside me, and limiting beliefs are activated inside of me, and the emotions that are flooding my system. And so when we are inside those emotional states, it literally creates a lens on how we're viewing the world, how we're viewing the situation, the people, the circumstances around us. And we're not seeing clearly. It's not the full picture. It's not full reality. We're actually drawing on all sorts of past stories, past data that have been accumulating in our minds. And when we're operating from that place, we're not making aligned choices, decisions, and actions because we're not seeing clearly. And so the 3 steps to alignment and creating space for yourself to use this tool over and over and over again, because it's not a one and done thing. I use this almost every day. But returning to this tool over and over and over again helps us to move from that activated state back into alignment so that our perspectives broaden. Clarity comes. We see the bigger picture. We have a bigger understanding. We are connected inside of ourselves. We are feeling, aligned and balanced, whatever that might look like or feel like for you. And then we can respond, and then we can move forward, and then we can make a new choice. And then we know how to respond to this situation or whatever the drama was that activated us in the first place. This is a path to efficiency. And my brain has been convinced, and I think that's why I crave it so much. Okay, let's dive in. So let's start with step 1, name it. So this step is all about identifying the emotion that is most present for you. And it might start off as a surface level emotion. I'm annoyed, or I'm stressed out, or I'm overwhelmed. It might feel like something very, very surface. But what we're trying to peel back here and name it is we're trying to get to what's underneath of those surface level emotions. What's at the core? What do we actually feel? Oftentimes, when my internal state is disrupted and I am walking around the world, a go-to feeling for me is anxiety or overwhelm. That's just like a go-to, very surface level emotion for me. And if I'm not naming it and like inviting myself to get deeper into the layers to actually feel what's really there, I'm operating in the world with a buzzing anxiety or a crushing overwhelm of like, oh, I can't think clearly. My to-do list is flowing off my page, whatever it might be. It can start with naming the surface level emotion, but we want to like peel back the layers. If I sit with my overwhelm long enough and I just simply ask myself, okay, I'm overwhelmed. What's beneath that? What am I overwhelmed about? I have enormous amounts of work to do. Okay. What's beneath that? I am scared that I won't get it done in time. Okay. What's beneath that? It can go to a pretty core root of what's actually there when we invite ourselves to sit with it and just peel back those layers.
For me lately, a lot of my surface emotions that seem to be, floating around that I can feel first are irritation and resentment and agitation, those sorts of things. And I notice that when I'm noticing and naming those superficial emotions, this is one of those places that I have to remind myself that leaning in is worthwhile, because I don't like to admit that I'm feeling resentment or irritation, especially if it's like relating to or involving people I really care about. I judge myself for those superficial emotions. And I have to push past the inclination to suppress those things, get over those things, move past those things, because those aren't good. But if I sit with the resentment or the agitation or the irritation and I ask what's under it, there's something in me that starts to soften a little bit as I get to the core feelings of, oh, sadness, oh, disappointment, oh, fear. There's something in me that starts to soften. And the closer to the core emotion that I get, the more tender I feel. And I usually start to feel a little bit of compassion or understanding for myself. I notice that it's usually always true that underneath the emotions that I judge myself for, I have like a reason of like a deeper emotion or pain, like sadness or a lot of fear that is really hard. But when I get to that root emotion that is more tender or more intense or heavier, there's even a little bit of relief just at the naming of it. And I think, oh, no wonder I'm acting like, like a crazy person, because, oh, this is what I'm really feeling under the surface.
Yeah, there is something very tender when you touch it. If I'm going from anxiety to, oh, what's actually here? What's underneath the anxiety? What's beneath that? And I get to typically the root of the majority of those feelings are connected to some type of fear, lack, scarcity, or not enoughness. When I name that, I move out of the actual physical sensations of anxiety right into like the raw, vulnerable, sensitive feelings of the fear I'm carrying or the scarcity I'm feeling. And now I'm like really naming what's actually there. When we name it, like that's what we're trying to do here. That's the emotion that we want to work with when we move to step 2 of this process, which is to feel it. But before we move to step 2, I just want to stay here for a couple more minutes to talk about strategies, how to name it. I was teaching an advanced alumni training yesterday, and the entire topic of the session was around name it, feel it, shift it. So these coaches, as a group of coaches who have all been trained in name it, feel it, shift it, they've been coaching for years, and now we're taking this process even into deeper layers with their clients. And one of the coaches there was telling me that she's a coach and she used to be a physician and she's now a coach, but her entire client base is physicians. So she works with physicians. And what she was saying was, when we were talking about name it, she was telling us that doctors, just in their training, have been trained out of listening to the body's natural cues, like emotions, feelings inside. So like years of medical conditioning that has all been inside of the brain and inside of the mind has actually created this like disconnect from like emotional states or what they're feeling inside of their body. And so she was just sharing how challenging her clients find, her brilliant, incredibly smart clients find actually naming their emotions inside, and how almost rudimentary she has to be in this step with her clients, almost even beginning with like relearning the body's simplest cues. Like, if you feel the urge to pee, go pee. If you're hungry, grab a snack. If you're tired, rest. So a lot of her work has actually been to like rebuild this connection with the sensations and the feelings in the body. And what I want to share is that it's okay to start small, because this is so foundational. Learning how to recognize the basic sensations in our bodies is actually what paves the way for deeper emotional awareness, to be able to go to the deeper layers of what you actually feel inside. So that's actually, the body is a doorway to naming it. And so often, I am thinking about clients I've worked with, and if I'm asking them how they feel, some clients who are used to going into their emotions can name their emotions right away, but others might not even know how to answer that question. I don't know how I feel. I'm scattered. They don't even know how to answer that question. Sometimes the mind can't answer that question because there's too much going on, but the body never lies. Like, the body knows how you feel. And so the body can become this doorway for us to name what it is we're feeling inside. And that can start with just a simple sensation. So it might not be, where are you feeling your emotions in your body? It might start with, let's just do a little body scan here. And in the meditation that I'm providing everyone listening to this, there's a guided body scan to help you, just locate and name what sensations and where are you feeling it in your body. Maybe it's a pain, or maybe it's like a kink in your neck, or maybe it's just like a fluttering feeling in your chest. The other day I was doing this and I felt, when I was trying to locate the emotion in my body, I went right to my solar plexus, which is the space under your heart above your belly button. And when I was placing my hands there and I was noticing the sensation that was there, the only thing I could access in that moment was, it felt like this like boiling pot of acid. It's like such a strange feeling, but the sensation, that's what I was feeling. That was the sensation. And so I just stayed with that sensation and a little bit longer, and stayed with that and asked, what are the feelings that are bubbling up to the surface in this boiling pot of acid? It was such a gross picture, but that's what I was feeling inside. And then I was able to like more gently go into the layers of the actual emotions that were there. And then the feeling I was feeling actually started to dissipate. And I was just really starting to feel the true emotions that were there.
I'm normally pretty good at naming pretty quickly, not just the superficial emotions, but also getting to the root emotion, probably just from practice over and over again and wiring that. Also, probably just because my emotions speak so loudly inside of me. So that's normally really easy. A few days ago, I wanted to start preparing for this conversation. I wanted to go through all of the journal prompts, just like immerse myself in it, see what, insights came up. I actually had no strong emotions to explore in the usual way, but I did have an aching hip, a hip that was aching so badly that it was taking all of my attention. And I decided, let's try name it, feel it, shift it. Like, this is in my body. It's speaking to me. It's trying to communicate. Let's try this process on my hip. And I did. And I think I got to experience a little bit of what it feels like for those people who can't immediately connect a sensation to an emotion. Because I could feel into this ache in my hip. I could feel where it was, but I couldn't name it. And in some ways that made a lot of sense to my mind. Part of my mind was saying, well, the sensation I feel in my hip is just because you have been sitting on the couch too much and decided to go for a long walk, and now you're aching because you're out of shape. But I really do believe that even those physical aches, I think our body speaks to us in many ways. I kept with it. And one thing that I let myself do was not be certain that I'd named it perfectly. And that really opened up a lot for me. And it was interesting, these little intuitions or thoughts or words about what maybe these emotions could be just kind of popped into my head. And I decided to just try it, just keep going with it, even without the certainty that I normally have of, oh, this is the feeling for sure. In my hip, I thought, oh, what if this is like really old fears that aren't flared up and acute right now? But what if this is some of my lifetime's worth of pains and fears that are, like almost in my subconscious? And that's kind of why I can't name them. Anyway, I went with that. And it was shocking how much it still worked without the absolute certainty of knowing the name of the emotion. It was amazing how enough that was just to guess or wonder and be okay with having it wrong. So I thought, well, maybe that's the emotion that's living in my hip here. And I just decided to move forward with it being okay, even if I hadn't named it perfectly. And I think that was really powerful to do. And I really don't think you need this super strong relationship pre-developed to be able to really powerfully move through this process and to explore the way your body is speaking to you.
And at the same time, the more you do it, the greater like emotional connection and fluency like builds inside of you so that you can start to more accurately name what it is you're feeling. In the workbook companion that we've created, there's an emotional spectrum that we've created. And again, by no means is this a fully exhaustive list of all emotions you can feel. But what we really tried to do was we placed emotions along a spectrum of love on one end of the spectrum and fear on the other. And all of the emotions that could possibly exist somewhere along that spectrum, we place them there. And what this tool can help you do is it can help you name, like, somewhere in the middle of the spectrum are those more surface level emotions, overwhelm, anxiety, whatever it might be, irritation, and then you can use that spectrum to just look at it and say like, oh, what emotion is here that I'm feeling? Put your finger on it. Okay. Now what's beneath that, and kind of move down the spectrum and then be able to name, oh, it's actually this. I feel grief. I feel sadness. I feel fear, whatever it might be for you. And that's a way to help you just accurately name, put your finger on what is most present, what is here for you.
Sometimes for some people, you might need to look at that emotional spectrum tool and go, oh, I don't know, this is closest, and just, move forward and do your best. There's other times where the minute you put your finger on the core of what you're feeling and really name it, it's like touching it, naming it instantly and automatically sometimes opens up the floodgates to start the feeling process.
And then we naturally shift into step 2, feel it. These steps are not rocket science. These steps are actually how our bodies want to feel and process emotions and like complete that emotional cycle. And so when we've named it, you'll often feel like the true feelings, surfacing. So no longer do you feel the surface level emotion of whatever that was, irritation, overwhelm, anxiety. Now you're at the core of it. When I'm coaching clients, I often know when someone has gotten to name it and is starting to transition to feel it because tears come. It's the body's natural way of releasing emotion. A coach who's able to facilitate this process really well with their clients and is deeply attuned to how their clients are moving through the process of name it, feel it, shift it. You can sense, you can feel when someone is ready to move on to the step 2, feel it. Inside of yourself, when you've got to feel it, this is the time to give yourself absolute full permission to feel your emotions without trying to fix it, bypass it, make it all better, feel better quicker. This is your full permission to just allow yourself to feel. There's this quote from an American poet named Robert Frost, and he says the best way out is always through. Whenever I think of Name It, Feel It, Shift It, I think of that quote, because the best way out of this emotion, of this deep feeling that you're feeling, is to move right through it, not to bypass it, not to put a Band-Aid on it, not to fix it, but to allow yourself to move through it, feel through it. That's the only way out of the other side in a truly meaningful and real way. Of all the steps, in my experience, this one might be the most challenging, because really allowing yourself to feel the feeling. It's one thing to name it, and then it's quite another to allow yourself to go there. And we're not going there to ruminate or get stuck or lost inside that feeling. We're going there to fully feel it in a healthy and productive way so that it can move through us. So again, there's like an efficiency to this. I think my mind has to know that, okay, I'm not going there. I'm not going to get stuck in this well of feeling or fear that I'm feeling. This is truly the most efficient path forward.
I remember years ago taking myself through Name It, Feel It, Shift It. And once I named it and started feeling the tip of this well of emotion that was living inside me, I was genuinely scared that if I let myself sink into this well of emotion, I would get lost there and that it was bottomless. I was really afraid that I was sending myself somewhere dangerous, unproductive, somewhere where I would just sink lower and lower and lower and lower and never come out. Like if I let myself start sliding down there, I'd never come up. It was really scary for me to let myself trust, I guess, in my own natural process of emotion, trust that there was nothing broken about me, that I had this intense emotion. And it almost came as a shock to me. At that particular time, it was a lot of just the deepest sadness, deep, deep, deep grief. And so this was at a really, really challenging, sensitive time in my life. I had just gone through a separation and I was navigating so many feelings around love and relationship and worth. And oh my gosh, I was feeling so deeply the yearning to be loved and cherished and adored. And I was also feeling a lifetime's worth of what felt like letdown and abandonment and just, the deepest, deepest heartbreak. That was like the deepest well of grief inside me. This was a big, big, big thing. And full disclosure, this did not need one sit down session of Name It, Feel It, Shift It. This took quite a few really intentional, kind of carved out times for this process of Name It, Feel It, Shift It. And I think every time I sat down and tried to feel another little portion of what was in me, I think I had a little bit of frustration and disappointment that I wasn't fully shifted or the heavy emotions weren't fully released. But eventually, what was so mind-blowing to me was that at a certain point, I actually had got to the bottom of that well and felt all the feelings. It was almost this like wild revelation of, oh my gosh, it actually worked. My feelings of grief weren't bottomless here. I didn't get stuck in there. Every time I went in, I managed to come back out. And that process of going back in to honor and feel my emotions over and over and over, eventually they really were all felt. And now when I feel in there, I might have grief about other things in other areas, but that's gone. It's felt, it's released. And it was hard. I won't say it was not hard because it was. It's so hard to surrender to a feeling you don't want to feel. It's so hard to surrender in pain. And one thing I really called on in those moments was I had done yoga teacher training years back. And I remember the way they described leaning into a stretch, especially the longer ones, like, in a yin pose, where you're breathing into where it's like that painful stretch, and then you're exhaling and like releasing a little bit more. For some reason, that came to mind when I was in the feel it process of just allowing it to be there through breathing into it over and over and over again. And it sort of built this capacity in me to be able to feel hard things. And it transformed me. Cultivating that type of capacity for myself, I think, is one of the most important things I've ever done for myself, the capacity to feel these hard things.
So this process works for the big emotions like grief and the really hard emotions to feel. Like there's certain emotions that feel the yuckiest for me, like feelings of like shame and just like embarrassment, or shame is a big one. This works for like really tender, big things. And it also works for daily, little, small things. And to your point, Michelle, as we move through the emotions, it's not like we move through it and we're suddenly healed and new versions of ourselves. We have to come back to this over and over and over again. I like to think of what's actually happening in our brains when we do this process. So if we think about feelings, or if we think about, limiting beliefs we hold, or feelings of fear, or not being enough, or scarcity, or whatever it might be, like I like to think of it as, imagine those neural pathways. Those beliefs are these strong neural pathways in our brain that have been just strengthened and rooted so deeply throughout our lives. And what this process is doing, it's like touching the root, the heart of that pathway. And it's like loosening like one little neural pathway at a time, or like the grip of it is maybe untangling or getting a little bit looser. And then while we're doing this, we're building new neural pathways. We're building new beliefs inside of ourselves. And this is what happens when we get to the shift it that we're going to move into in just a moment, where when we move out of a limiting belief of our mind and move into the grounded and wise perspective of our inner knowing, our inner wisdom, and we anchor into that and we move forward in our lives from that place of clarity and groundedness, we're strengthening new belief systems in our minds. And so it's not that this one is completely magically dissolved and we're healed. This is slow and real work. This is not fast, sexy, overnight transformation. Like this is real. This is the real work that over time changes who we are, over time changes how we feel inside of our bodies, over time changes the daily choices, decisions, and actions we take that over the long haul literally change the trajectory of our lives.
My last thought about feel it is that you cannot control how much time and space you need to feel something. And there will be times like, the time I just described where I had to come back to it day after day after day, week after week of feeling this thing, and had so much frustration that it was taking so long. I said to myself and out loud so many times, like, I'm feeling it. How much more do I have to feel it? And there was so much frustration that there was so much to feel. And that really took a lot of, I guess, surrendering into, okay, I will feel what is here to feel. And then there are other times where it's not always that slow, frustrating process of having to be, devoted and patient. There are many, many times, and I know you've experienced this too. There are many times where I sat down with something that felt impossible or upsetting or tangled. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to feel better about this. And somehow through this process, you find the bottom of the feeling and you start to feel the opening towards the shift in almost a miraculous way, in a way where, I didn't expect I would actually find such relief and clarity so quickly in this process. And I heard this thing about falling asleep once that I think applies to the transition from feeling it to shifting it, is that you can't ever choose the moment you fall asleep. You can control the conditions that will allow you to fall asleep. You can choose to lie down. You can choose to close your eyes. Perhaps you could choose to, I don't know, empty your mind, relax your mind, whatever it is. Like, you can choose all of those things. But the moment of falling asleep just sort of happens when you surrender to it. And in fact, the more you try to force falling asleep, I don't know if you've ever had insomnia, but I have, when you really want to sleep and you're looking at the clock and you're like, I'm only going to have 6 hours. I really need to fall asleep. It takes you so much further from sleep. And I think a very similar thing is true about this shift it. You can set up the conditions, which are really feel, but you can't force the moment of shift it to happen.
I've never heard of that. You've never shared that with me before. And I love that. I think that is so spot on. In the Mind Rebel method, we work with personas inside of ourselves, like the rebel mind or the guard. And we create these personas as a representation of the part of us. Our rebel mind is the part of us that feels the most vulnerable. It's the one on that emotional spectrum that represents those really raw, vulnerable emotions that are most connected to fear and lack and scarcity and not enoughness. And then we create personas around this other kind of set of emotions that we call it the guard persona. And the guard gets activated inside of us when there's something to protect or something to prove. It takes on all sorts of different emotions. But we create these personas so that we can observe our feelings and emotions and our behaviors in just a more objective and neutral way. So if you have access, if you're working with the Mind Rebel method and you work with your personas, this is a perfect time to bring your personas into this process. What does your rebel mind feel? Let that part of you go wild. What do they feel? What does your guard feel? Like, allow yourself to express it. Because oftentimes when I'm feeling it, my logical mind can be like, is that really a logical fear? A lot of the times the fears of my rebel mind are really not super logical to my mind. But if I allow my rebel mind, who is a 4-year-old version of myself, speak, well, to her, it's a real fear. So like letting that part of myself totally express and write down all the fear. Or maybe my guard isn't just in this like controlling protective mode because it's trying to protect the rebel mind, like letting that part of myself write. By the way, if you are curious to learn more about these personas, you can check out a free resource. Another free resource we have, it's a training called the Inner Compass. So it's our free training that introduces you to these concepts and the deeper framework of the personas behind this work. And so you can find the link to that as well in the show notes. But truly, regardless of whether or not you're using personas to help you feel your emotions, this part is really essential and not to be bypassed or skipped. It's where like the real healing and the real integration begins. Sometimes this can be done through writing. So again, in the resource that we've provided you, you've got journal prompts to help you get to the heart of what you feel. We've also provided you a 45-minute meditation to help you guide you into your emotions if that serves you better. Sometimes we need support. I mean, that's what coaches do. That's how we've trained all of our coaches, is to hold space for this depth of work. And so sometimes you need support from someone who is going to help you hold that space in a really safe container without trying to fix, save, heal you, or put you back together, or bypass your emotions, or jump to solutions too quickly. And that is an art form. It is truly an art for someone to be able to hold that space for you. So just know that if you're struggling to do this on your own, we have a roster of trained coaches that can help you experience or help you move through your emotions in this context. So let's talk about the shift it. This is the third stage. And again, this isn't about fixing yourself. It's about allowing the natural opening to emerge after you felt what's there to feel. The shift can come fast, just like falling asleep can come fast, or it can come very subtly. And so the idea here is to just know the cues of shift it. So oftentimes shift it might just be like a deeper breath, a sigh, a softening in your chest, a sense of lightness in your body, sometimes humor, whatever situation you're inside of, you might find a little flicker of humor in it, or a new perspective or a new piece of clarity that you hadn't seen before start to creep in. And these are all signs that you are shifting that energy out of your body. You're shifting those emotions out of your body, and you are coming back home to yourself. You're coming back into a place of alignment.
I've had moments where the shift it feels like I've just unclenched my stomach a little bit. And I'm not feeling 100%, but it's like, okay, there's a little relief. I've had shift it moments that hit me so hard and so fast that it felt like the craziest eureka aha moment. Like, oh my God, the secrets of the universe just fell into my mind. It's all become clear. And every single thing in between. I don't know if there's ever two shift its that are exactly alike. Sometimes the shift it comes with a trickle of clarity and new possibility that you need to sort of nurture and invite in. And other times it comes in just with a flood of clarity.
When we're inside of the negative emotion or the trigger or whatever we're inside of, again, it's like we have a veil over our eyes and we're not seeing the situation, whatever's happening in our lives, the circumstances, we're not seeing it with full clarity. And so when we move through the name it, feel it, shift it process, and we're moving into shift it, and we're coming back, we're moving that energy out of our body and we're coming back home to ourselves. And I like to imagine like we're opening back up, like the veil is lifting, we're opening back up to that clarity. And we can see the situation clearer with a fresher set of eyes, a clearer set of eyes. We've emotionally processed whatever was there to emotionally process. And so when you start to feel the shift it, this is where you can start to really anchor into the wisdom and the truth that lives inside of you that now you are beginning to have access to. So when you move through the journal prompts, or even the meditation, you'll notice that the shift it part, the prompts or the questions that are asked of you are questions like, what do you see now that you didn't see before? What's clearer for you now? What new perspective do you have access to? In coaching sessions, this is where, us as coaches would start to shift our questions to asking our clients those same questions about, what do you see from here? What's possible in this situation from here? You're asking questions to the part of yourself that knows and that now can see clearly. This is where we want to really anchor into that truth inside of us so that we can make choices, decisions, and actions from this place of alignment and not from the triggered states of our rebel minds, our guards, or whatever emotions that we're inside of. And Michelle, to your point, sometimes these shifts are grand, and the perspective or the alignment that you find or the insights or the ahas are like, oh my gosh, it's clear now. I see something here that I didn't see before, and you know what to do. Sometimes they're micro shifts. Sometimes it's just like a deeper breath, right? A little bit more clarity. Even 1 degree of alignment brings you back into contact with yourself, with your power, with your wisdom, with your presence. A question you could ask yourself is, like, what would be the most self-honoring step that you could take from here? And here's the beautiful thing about this process. It guides you back to yourself. You're not asking an expert or a guru or a coach or a mentor those questions. You're learning how to access those answers inside of yourself. This process repeated over and over and over again, and getting into the habit of going towards yourself to ask yourself these questions builds and cultivates an enormous amount of self-trust and self-love and self-sovereignty inside yourself. I was saying earlier that I crave this. What I actually really crave when I'm in a triggered state or an emotional state is I crave myself. I crave my wisdom. I crave my truth. I crave my clarity. I crave my own perspective that no one else can give me. I have to give it to myself. I have to be open to receiving it. And that's what this process can build for you.
Once I tasted what it felt like to contact, hear, feel my own wisdom. Like once I tasted what that was like, nothing else, no other bits of wisdom, advice, guidance from other people have ever compared ever since. It's not that I don't appreciate it. I still appreciate other perspectives, and I sometimes appreciate advice, sometimes not. Like, I love to read books, hear other ideas, but nothing in this world is as satisfying or as powerful as your own inner wisdom directing you to where you are meant to go. Nothing is like it. And I think that's like the beauty and the power of name it, feel it, shift it. It's also like the beauty and the power of what I found through coaching. That's why I fell in love with coaching, because you learn how to be a support to somebody else and hold the space for something like this process of name it, feel it, shift it, or for whatever process someone is going through. And you learn how to invite them into themselves and into their own wisdom. And there's really nothing else like that in the world. I really used to look at personal growth or even spirituality or just getting better at this life. I really used to see it in a very similar way that I think school primed me to see things, where you learn from the teachers and the experts. You practice it, you memorize it, you figure out how to get better at it, and then you keep going like that. You just learn more and more, digest the course, digest the textbook, keep going, other people's ideas. I really used to believe in that. I really did. I really thought this is what will fuel me into whatever heights I want to get to. And now that feels so superficial to me in the grand scheme of where like the deepest, most important growing edges are in my life. And I also feel for humanity. I know I'm getting really grand right now, but I think like, when you think about new frontiers of discovery, like people going to space or climbing mountains or, whatever, and you think about these accomplishments of humans, I think all of the new important accomplishments, like things like world peace are not going to come from people reading textbooks and like learning new ideas. They are going to come from people learning to contact their own wisdom here. All the important breakthroughs, all the important transformations, like I know in my own life of who I yearn to be and what I yearn for. And also, I think in the world I yearn to see, I really believe all of that is going to be created through me and you and millions of other humans learning how to go in and touching their own wisdom and writing a new way that hasn't been seen before, that aligns with their hearts and their souls and what they know is right in their values and their own integrity. Because I think so many people are catching on that like, oh, there's a lot of good ideas that sound good, but something just feels off to me. And like that feeling of something feeling off, like that's true. These are the windows. And I think there's nothing I want more than for, like you said earlier, for this to spread to everyone, for everyone to learn to do this. There's nothing special about me or my wisdom that's like better than anyone else's, same with yours. And yet my wisdom is the most powerful for me. But every single person in the entire world has a wisdom in them that is as precious and as powerful as anyone else's. That's the revolution that I think everyone's yearning for, and it will result in all of these beautiful things. It seems too simple and quaint to think it will have an impact like this. Like, I'm going to sit in my house and I'm going to feel my feelings. It's like hard to make the direct link. But, you were talking about like efficiency. I really, truly believe with every fiber of my being that if you want world peace, if you want a beautiful vision, if you want children and women and all humans and animals to be honored, I swear feeling your feelings is the quickest way there for humanity. I would bet, yeah, I bet my life on it.
What you just expressed and how you beautifully just expressed it, that is like the why of the MRA. That is the ultimate why and intention of the work that we want to spread and give and equip the world with skills on how to do this for themselves. Like you just so beautifully expressed our why. So this is the process. Name it, feel it, shift it, the 3 steps to alignment. Just a couple little last thoughts here that I want to speak to before we close up this podcast. The first is sometimes you'll find that you'll move through these 3 steps in perfect sequence and perfect order. And sometimes you'll find that you kind of move back and forth between these 3 steps. So sometimes I'll find that I'll name something. So I'll move from the drama or whatever's happening in my mind, I'll sink into my body, I'll name something, and then I'll move into feel it, and I'm feeling my emotions, whether they're big or small. And then sometimes I can find myself kind of like almost like an elevator moving from my body back up to my mind, spinning around in the drama. And now I'm no longer feeling it. I'm ruminating in the story. I'm ruminating in the drama. And that's not effective or efficient. That's not feel it. That's ruminating in it. And so that's just an invitation to go back to step 1. Okay, I found myself back in my story. Go back to naming it. Okay, name it, move into feel it, and move through the process. The same is true sometimes when I'm shifting it. So I'm feeling something and I'm starting to shift. I'm starting to feel a new perspective creep in or a new awareness, or I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And then all of a sudden, I'm right back into feel it. And that's okay. Then go right back to step 2, feel it. There's still more emotions to process. There's still something else to feel. Allow yourself to keep going through. It's almost like you're drifting off to sleep and then you wake back up, just go back to doing whatever you need to do, feeling your emotions to allow yourself to shift it. Sometimes this can happen in a journaling session or a meditation. Sometimes it requires a little bit more time of coming back to this. But one thing I will say is try and set yourself up with some type of a practice where you return to this. I like to do name it, feel it, shift it every morning. So this is part of my journaling practice. I've carved out space in my morning to sit with myself, sit with my emotions, check in with my body. Is there any little emotions that I want to check in with and name, feel, and shift? Sometimes when there's not, that's fine. But for me, when I wake up in the morning, my natural set point is to be a little bit more on the kind of buzzing, anxious side. I've got an enormous amount to do in a day and lots going on in my mind, a lot to think about. And so this time in the morning that I've carved out for myself allows me to be with myself first thing in the morning before I contact any other human or do any other thing. I'm tending to myself and tending to my inner world and checking in, doing my name it, feel it, shift it. Sometimes throughout the day, if I'm having a particularly stressful day or something activates me, I'll do a meditation midway through my day to check in with my emotions. So just an invitation to find meaningful points of your day where you're checking in with yourself, either through journaling or meditation. We've, again, in the accompanying resources, we've provided you both options, journaling prompts and a meditation to help you facilitate this for yourself. But just building this in as a habit to check in with yourself. And what happens is that name it, feel it, shift it, this process can become more proactive than reactive. So if you're checking in with your emotions daily, it might just be like a little sensations that you're digging into rather than not checking in with yourself. And then it's like a pressure cooker. It's almost like this process is like relieving the valves of our emotional body to relieve the pressure of emotion inside. But if left unchecked, we're walking around the world and there's no outlet for those emotions. It can blow. It can be reactive. It can be kind of the kindest thing that you can do for yourself is to tend to your emotions daily in this way. Sometimes it will be short, sometimes it will be big, but it's incredibly self-honoring.
Here's one thing I think that can make a difference, and it will be interesting to notice what your personal preference is that Do you feel safer and more supported to go through a process like Name It, Feel It, Shift It? Do you feel safer and more supported to do it alone, in solitude, in a cozy bed, cozy couch? Or do you feel safer and more supported to be around someone you love and cares about you and is able to hold space for you? I've heard very strong preferences on both ends. So for me, I generally really love to be alone. And I really love to have like solitude, time, space, especially if I know I have to feel intense feelings and I know I'm going to cry. Sometimes it can be so helpful to have enough space where I know, like, even if I cry and sob and it's like an ugly cry, I have enough time for my face to calm down before I have to go out in public again, like even just knowing like, oh no, I have to go and do this after, it's like enough to stifle some of my feelings sometimes. So just, thinking about what kind of environment, what kind of conditions, what kind of time, what kind of space do I need to really let myself go in here can really make such a huge difference. And I've heard, this isn't me, but I've heard other people say, I really wanted the comfort of this person who I love and feel safe with to be with me. I didn't want to feel these feelings alone. So I wanted someone there. I generally don't want someone there when I'm doing my ugly cries. But for some people, that's so comforting to not feel alone and to know there's like a lifeline that they could touch or, have someone hug them, something like that. So just like learning what your preferences are and adapting can be so powerfully supportive in helping you do this work.
So speaking of just having another human there with you, the best way that you can support others through this process is by doing it for yourself. So this is another topic of conversation yesterday in this advanced training I was doing with alumni was, yes, there's skill, there's technique, there's knowing the questions to ask, there's knowing how to do this safely, there's knowing how to also attune your questions and your language to your audience, whether you're doing this with kids, someone in the corporate world, someone who's deeply attuned to their emotions. There's all sorts of different ways to attune yourself as a coach to that. But you can only go as deep with another as you are willing to go within yourself. Your ability to build the capacity to be with your own emotions, your own feelings, your own sensations in your body, your own fears, your own limiting beliefs, and move through to the other side to get to your own truth. Your ability and devotion to yourself to do that is what strengthens your capacity to hold that space for others. Whether you are a coach or not, your ability to sit with this for yourself strengthens your ability to be a true support for those you love, lead, and serve, whether this is for your children or, an employee in the corporate world. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So going back to what you were saying earlier about like the importance for doing this for ourselves as like a healing mechanism for the world, that's another outcome of this work is who you become. That steady, sturdy present that can be with others in the depths of their emotion and help facilitate this process for them when you are actively doing this for yourself. That concludes this episode on the 3 Steps to Alignment. Don't forget to grab your free resources, the 3 Steps to Alignment workbook and the meditation. And next time you're feeling overwhelmed, triggered, frustrated, hurt, disappointed, whatever emotion that you feel, reach for these tools. These resources will guide you gently through each of the 3 steps and help you to return to a place of inner clarity and groundedness within yourself, which is really this homecoming to yourself. Thanks for tuning into the Mind Rebel podcast. If you're craving a space to go deeper into explorations like these, visit themindrebel.com to learn more about our flagship program, The Mind Rebel Method. Whether you're feeling the call to become a world-class accredited coach, or you're simply yearning to live a life more true to who you really are, this is where your next chapter begins.